What is the greater risk to our constitutional republic? Prosecuting leftists who commit treason or not prosecuting leftists who commit treason? What to do about a treasonous conspiracy? That's the question before us in a guest-driven preamble. The DNI, the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, detailed the crimes that the evidence she released points to in an interview with Maria Bartiromo.
The implications of this are, frankly, nothing short of historic. Over 100 documents that we released on Friday really detail and provide evidence of how this treasonous conspiracy was directed by President Obama just weeks before he was due to leave office, after President Trump had already gotten elected.
Indeed, the documents prove that another example of what the majority of the biased left-wing press called a conspiracy theory was indeed true. Barack Obama and his cohorts manufactured the Trump-Russia collusion hoax, fabricating intelligence in an effort to undermine the people's choice for president. The president put this out on Truth Social, President Trump, and we reposted it on Truth Social and on X at Chris Salcedo Show and at C. Salcedo Show, respectively. The partial list of leftists who should be held accountable for what they did. There's supposed to be a picture that goes along with this, folks. Sorry about that. DNI Gabbard referred this to Pam Bondi's DOJ. We'll see if these revelations get the Epstein treatment or not. But I had conversations over the weekend with some family members and indeed my pal Sean Chastain, a guy who has a weekly visit with me on the Salcedo Storm podcast on something I call the show behind the show. You can hear how we tried to hash this out. But to summarize, when I pointed out the magnitude of what documents say Obama and his leftists are guilty of, and I said it's time for those responsible to go to jail, I was told it's never going to happen. The implication is that anti-American Marxists can never be prosecuted or jailed. The theory goes that those who believe and push for a totalitarian state will never be held accountable in America, because if they were, their minions would riot and burn down the country. I said, let me get this straight. They can commit a coup. They can unleash lawfare with completely asinine charges. They can attempt to assassinate my president twice, and nobody bats an eyelash. But the minute one talks about holding anti-American kooks like Barack Obama accountable to the law, well, they're just too big to be punished. Well, I'm going to stick with this. It's time for leftist criminals to go to jail now. Because here's what I suspect is a greater danger than applying the law to leftists. The greater danger is an America that realizes their government is worthless. The real danger is hundreds of millions of Americans wondering out loud, why do I have to pay taxes through the nose for such corruption in government? The real danger is those same Americans coming to the conclusion that if Obama, Comey, Brennan, Clinton, Clapper, and the rest don't have to follow the rules, then why do any of us? To all of you so-called Republicans in the America Last crowd who are already scheming to get Obama and company off, a cautionary tale of an America that realizes their own government is completely corrupt, completely useless, and not worth keeping. An American people made up of military, law enforcement, teachers, Uber drivers, tech entrepreneurs, and all facets of American life, who finally awaken to the fact that they outnumber government. The greater risk, I submit, is letting the Obama cabal get away with what their own documents accuse them of doing. For more, let's bring in host of Declassified with Julie Kelly, the one, the only Julie Kelly. It's great to see you, lady. Documents are now in the hands of the DOJ, not Congress, not politicians, thankfully. Julie, all eyes now are once again on Pam Bondi. What's your take on that?
Well, she certainly has a lot to work with. I think she already had plenty to work with. And it's hard to see at this point, Chris, where charges are not brought against at least a few, perhaps several of these Russiagate perpetrators. Now, let's disabuse the audience that Barack Obama or Hillary Clinton are going to be charged or hauled off in handcuffs. That's not going to happen. What I'm looking at more closely, and the people I'm looking at more closely, Chris, are people like Lisa Monaco, for example, because not only was she an original Russiagate architect, she also was participated in that December 9th, 2016 meeting, White House meeting that we just learned about from Tulsi Gabbard on Friday. But then she served as the Deputy Attorney General for Joe Biden for 4 years, running the Department of Justice, where she continued what she started in 2016, which was abusing the DOJ, FBI, national security, law enforcement apparatus in Washington to try to sabotage and destroy Donald Trump. So if you're looking at what we reportedly have heard, a grand conspiracy investigation ongoing at the FBI, then she certainly is one of the common factors, probably the most common factor, that draws a straight line through 2016 to the end of 2024. So those are the sorts of individuals I would be looking at. I just broke news today, Chris. The House Judiciary Committee has subpoenaed Thomas Windom, who is sort of the conduit between Maine Justice and the DC U.S. Attorney's Office and Special Counsel Jack Smith. They just subpoenaed him. He sat for an interview last month, refused to answer a lot of questions, and they are now subpoenaing him to compel him to produce those answers about Jack Smith and other DOJ investigations he participated in.
Julie, let me just push back a little bit on the idea. We all remember they hauled President Trump and had the mugshot. We all remember that. The left wants us to believe they can commit multiple acts of lawfare that resulted in that. They can shoot at President Trump, but the sainted Obama or Hillary Clinton can't be brought to justice for what they did. What do you make of the threat that leftists and the bad actors that leftists allowed to invade our country might rise up if we dare to hold the likes of Obama and Clinton to the same standard that they hold all of us?
I mean, it's certainly a possibility. I don't see that sort of loyalty, though, to either Barack Obama or Hillary Clinton from the Democratic base. Of course, you'll have some rabble-rousers who might try to do something. Maybe you'll have the boomer activists, that we've seen at the, what did they call it? The No Kings rally that was like 77-year-old plus. So maybe they'll come out at the villages again, or I have no idea. But I'm sure that is the last thing on the minds of Attorney General Pam Bondi, her team, certainly Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, any sort of public backlash, because they know more than anyone that the president deserves some accountability and dare I say, some retribution for what these people put him through for the better part of a decade, and for intentionally deceiving the American people over illegally manufactured Russiagate hoax.
I've got to say it, illegally. They did it. It violates the law. Anna Paulina Luna's out there saying it breaks the law. The documents reportedly show that it's not just Obama or Hillary. John Brennan, James Clapper, James Comey, slew of others. They ran a coup for years against the president of the United States to subvert the will of the American people. Julie, what will happen to our country if the DOJ sends the message that Barack Obama and company are too big to be prosecuted? What do you think happens to this country?
Well, I think the first time around, Chris, when there was not accountability, then that led to kind of on steroids, the January 6th prosecution of 1,600 Americans for protesting Joe Biden's election. And then, of course, the DOJ investigations that was then turned over to Special Counsel Jack Smith in November 2022, resulting in unprecedented federal criminal indictments against a former president, which also consisted of a 9-hour armed raid of his private residence. If we don't hold these perpetrators accountable and they feel the same sting of the legal and judicial system that they inflicted on Donald Trump, his allies, his family, his White House associates, his attorneys, and of course his supporters, if they don't feel the same sort of lawfare, the same sort of pressure that they've inflicted on others, then we will have it again, and it will be worse than it has been the past few times around.
They threw us in jail. They took away our due process rights. They shot at our president. They conducted massive lawfare, and the idea that, oh, because they're Democrats, because they're leftists, they get away with it. Sorry, not where I. You know, folks, I thank God for my wonderful wife, my kids, my country, the greatest nation ever. And Americans like you who believe in the truth, the Chris Salcedo Show will never stop fighting for you.
The Chris Salcedo Show, for the news you need to know.